September 12, 1958. The Red Rooster restaurant on 138th Street. Big Sam had been Bumpy Johnson's bodyguard for 5 years. The man Bumpy called brother. The man who knew every move Bumpy made. That's exactly why the Italian mob paid him $50,000 to pull the trigger. What happened in the next 8 seconds would become the most talked about moment in Harlem history. 340 people packed the Red Rooster that night. Live jazz played on stage. Champagne flowed. Bumpy sat at his corner table, his back to the door like always. Sam walked in at exactly 9:47 p.m. He raised his gun, aimed at the back of Bumpy's head, and pulled the trigger. 8 seconds. That's all it took for Big Sam to go from hitman to victim. 8 seconds for him to lose his sight forever. 8 seconds for 36 stab wounds to cover his body. But nobody saw who did it. Nobody heard the screams. And when the police arrived, 340 witnesses suddenly remembered nothing. If you want the full truth about what really happened that night, hit like so this story reaches more people who need to understand the code of Harlem. Let me take you back 3 weeks earlier. August 22, 1958. The 5 families held an emergency meeting in Little Italy, a restaurant called Umberto's Clam House, the same place where Joey Gallo would be killed 14 years later. Vincent Gigante sat at the head of the table. Frank Costello was there, still recovering from the assassination attempt the year before. Carlo Gambino, Anthony Strollo, Tommy Lucchese, all the most powerful men in organized crime. They had one problem they couldn't solve. Bumpy Johnson controlled Harlem. Every number, every bet, every street corner. And he refused to bow to anyone. The numbers game alone was generating $5 million a year in Harlem. $5 million that should have been flowing into Italian pockets. But Bumpy had locked it down tight. He'd built an organization so efficient, so protected, that the Italians couldn't even get a toehold. They'd been trying for 3 years. 3 years of failure. They tried buying him. Offered Bumpy a partnership. 50-50 split. Bumpy said no. He didn't need partners. He had Harlem's complete loyalty. They tried threatening him. Sent messages about what happened to people who didn't cooperate. Bumpy laughed in their faces. Told them to send more men if they wanted. He'd send them back in pieces. They tried sending their best men to muscle him out. Tough guys from Brooklyn. Enforcers from the Bronx. Those men never came back. Some ended up in the Hudson River. Some just disappeared. None of them ever touched Bumpy. So they decided to do what they always did when they couldn't beat someone fair. They found the person closest to him and made an offer nobody could refuse. They studied Bumpy for months. Watched his patterns. Identified his inner circle. And they kept coming back to one name. Big Sam. Big Sam was perfect. 6'4". 260 pounds of pure muscle. He'd protected Bumpy for 5 years. Never missed a day. Never made a mistake. He knew Bumpy's schedule down to the minute. His patterns. His habits. Where he sat. Where he walked. Who he talked to. What time he woke up. What he ate for breakfast. Most importantly, he knew Bumpy trusted him completely. Trusted him more than anyone except maybe his wife Mamie. Sam wasn't just a bodyguard. He was family. Bumpy had pulled Sam off the streets when Sam had nothing. Gave him a job. Gave him respect. Gave him purpose. Sam ate dinner at Bumpy's house every Sunday. He knew Bumpy's children by name. He'd saved Bumpy's life twice. Once from a rival gang in 1954. Once from a police ambush in 1956. Bumpy called him brother. Not as a title. As a fact. The Italians approached Sam carefully. They knew rushing would spook him. First, they just watched him. Learned his routines. His vices. Sam liked to gamble. Craps mostly. He was good but not great. He'd win some nights. Lose more nights. Nothing serious. But enough that he was always looking for extra cash. They sent a man named Anthony Strollo to make first contact. Strollo was smooth. Diplomatic. He approached Sam at a craps game in the Bronx. Started casual. Praised Sam's reputation. Mentioned how loyal he was to Bumpy. Then dropped a hint. Loyalty's beautiful, but it doesn't pay bills forever. Sam brushed it off. But the seed was planted. 2 weeks went by. Then Strollo approached again. This time with numbers. $50,000. One job. One moment. Then you disappear. Live like a king anywhere in America. Sam's hands started shaking when he heard that number. $50,000 in 1958 was equivalent to $500,000 today. Life-changing money. Enough to never work again. The Italians offered Sam $50,000. In 1958, that was enough money to disappear forever. Start a new life anywhere in America. Buy a house. Start a business. Leave the streets behind. All he had to do was pull one trigger. Sam took the deal. He shook hands with Vincent Gigante himself. They gave him a gun. Special ammunition that would do maximum damage. The plan was simple. Walk into the Red Rooster on Friday night. Bumpy always sat at the same corner table. Back to the door. One shot to the head. Walk out in the chaos. Collect the money and vanish. What Sam didn't know was that Bumpy Johnson had eyes everywhere. Not just in Harlem. Not just in Manhattan. Bumpy had people inside the 5 families themselves. Men who were tired of taking orders from bosses who didn't respect them. Men who saw Bumpy as the future. Men who believed the old Italian way was dying and a new order was coming. And those men told Bumpy everything. A man named Marcus was Bumpy's inside source. He worked for Carlo Gambino as a driver. Nobody paid attention to drivers. They talked freely around them. Made plans. Discussed hits. Counted money. All while Marcus sat behind the wheel, quiet, invisible, listening. Marcus had been feeding information to Bumpy for 2 years. Everything from shipment schedules to who was getting whacked to which politicians were on the payroll. When the 5 families held that meeting on August 22nd, Marcus was parked outside. When they decided to approach Big Sam, Marcus called Bumpy within the hour. When Sam took the deal, Marcus knew before the ink was dry. He told Bumpy the exact amount. $50,000. The exact date. September 12th. The exact location. The Red Rooster. The exact method. One shot to the back of the head. Most men would have panicked. Most men would have canceled all public appearances. Gone into hiding. Hired more security. Killed Sam immediately as an example. But Bumpy Johnson wasn't most men. When Marcus told him about Sam's betrayal, Bumpy didn't get angry. He smiled. Because he finally had the opportunity he'd been waiting for. The chance to teach everyone a lesson they'd never forget. 3 days before that Friday night, Bumpy knew exactly what was coming. He knew Sam had taken the deal. He knew the price. He knew the plan. He knew which restaurant. He knew which night. He knew Sam would walk in at approximately 9:45 p.m. He knew Sam had a new gun provided by the Italians. Special ammunition designed to ensure one shot would be fatal. He even knew Sam had been practicing at a range in Queens, trying to steady his shaking hands. Most men would have run. Most men would have killed Sam immediately. But Bumpy Johnson wasn't most men. He was 10 steps ahead of everyone. Always. Bumpy called a meeting with his inner circle. 20 men. His most trusted soldiers. Men who had been with him since the beginning. He told them about Sam's betrayal. He told them about the $50,000. And then he told them his plan. What he was about to do would send a message so powerful that nobody would ever betray him again. Friday night arrived. September 12th, 1958. The Red Rooster was packed as always. Bumpy sat at his corner table. His back to the door. Exactly where he always sat. But this time, everything was different. This time, every single person in that restaurant was one of Bumpy's people. Every waiter. Every musician. Every couple at every table. All 340 people worked for Bumpy Johnson. Comment legend if you believe Bumpy was the smartest gangster in history. Sam walked in at 9:47 p.m. He wore a black suit. His hand shook slightly as he reached for the gun in his jacket. He looked at Bumpy's back. The man he'd protected for 5 years. The man who'd trusted him like a brother. For a moment, Sam hesitated. Then he thought about the $50,000. He pulled out the gun, raised it, aimed, and pulled the trigger. Click. The gun was empty. Bumpy had gotten to it 2 days earlier. Sam's face went white. He tried to run. That's when the lights went out. Complete darkness. Total silence except for the jazz music that kept playing. What happened in those 8 seconds is something Sam would never see again. Literally. The first thing was the ice pick. It went straight into Sam's left eye. Professional. Precise. The kind of strike that came from years of experience. Before Sam could scream, another pick hit his right eye. Both eyes gone in 2 seconds. Permanent blindness. The pain was so intense Sam couldn't even make a sound. His mouth opened but nothing came out. Then came the knives. Bumpy's men moved like shadows. 36 stab wounds in 6 seconds. Not one of them fatal. That was the genius of it. Bumpy didn't want Sam dead. He wanted Sam to live. To serve as a walking reminder of what happened when you betrayed the king of Harlem. The knives hit Sam's arms, his legs, his back, his chest. Each wound placed perfectly to cause maximum pain but avoid major arteries. This wasn't murder. This was a message. This was art. When the lights came back on 8 seconds later, Sam was on the floor. Blood everywhere. Both eyes destroyed. 36 holes in his body. And he was still breathing. Bumpy stood up from his table. He walked over to Sam, kneeled down, and whispered 6 words that every witness would later swear they heard despite the impossible distance. "You chose money over loyalty, brother." Then Bumpy stood up, straightened his suit, and walked out of the Red Rooster. The jazz band kept playing. People went back to their drinks. And when the police arrived 15 minutes later, every single witness had the same story. They saw nothing. They heard nothing. They knew nothing. Type yes if you want to hear what the 5 families did when they found out what happened to Sam. The police investigated for 6 months. They questioned everyone. They offered deals. They threatened charges. Nothing. Not one person broke. Because in Harlem, there was one rule that mattered more than any law. You don't cross Bumpy Johnson. Ever. Detective Robert Sullivan led the investigation. 20-year veteran. He'd solved 83 cases in his career. Never failed to close a case. Until the Red Rooster. He interviewed all 340 witnesses. Every single one gave the exact same story. Word for word. Like they'd rehearsed it. The lights went out. We heard screaming. When the lights came back, Sam was on the floor bleeding. We didn't see who did it. Sullivan knew they were lying. He could see it in their eyes. But proving it was impossible. He tried separating witnesses, questioning them individually. He tried good cop, bad cop. He tried offering immunity. He tried threatening obstruction charges. Nothing worked. These people would rather go to jail than talk. One witness, an old woman named Dorothy, told Sullivan something he never forgot. "Detective, you're asking me to betray the man who saved my grandson from a drug dealer. The man who paid for my sister's cancer treatment. The man who makes sure our block is safe. You're asking me to choose between the law and the man who actually protects us. That's not a choice. That's an insult." Sullivan realized something that night. Bumpy Johnson wasn't feared in Harlem. He was loved. There's a massive difference. Fear makes people cooperate when threatened. Love makes people die for you. Sullivan couldn't compete with that. Nobody could. But what happened next was even more shocking. The Italian mob didn't retaliate. Vincent Gigante didn't send more men. Carlo Gambino didn't declare war. Instead, they did something nobody expected. They requested a meeting with Bumpy. A peace meeting. Frank Costello himself made the call. Asked politely if Bumpy would sit down and talk. The meeting happened 2 weeks after the Red Rooster incident. September 26, 1958. Neutral territory. A restaurant in Greenwich Village. Bumpy walked in alone. No bodyguards. No weapons. Just him in a perfectly tailored suit. The 5 most powerful Italian bosses sat at the table. All of them armed. All of them with men nearby. But nobody made a move. Vincent Gigante spoke first. What happened to Sam was unfortunate. But we understand your position. We respect it. We're here to propose peace. Bumpy didn't say anything. Just waited. Gigante continued. We'll stay out of Harlem completely. No numbers. No drugs. No nothing. It's yours. In return, we want the same respect in our territories. No expansion. No interference. Can we agree? Bumpy thought for a long moment. Then he smiled. You came to me. You asked for peace. You acknowledged Harlem is mine. That's all I needed to hear. We have a deal. They shook hands. Right there. A treaty that would last for 20 years. All because Bumpy proved something that terrified them. You can't kill one man when 40,000 people would die for him. Sam survived. But barely. He spent 3 months in the hospital. Harlem Hospital, ironically. The same hospital where Bumpy had paid for dozens of treatments over the years. The doctors saved his life, but they couldn't save his eyes. Both retinas destroyed beyond repair. 36 stab wounds required over 200 stitches. The scars covered his body like a map of his betrayal. When he got out in December 1958, Sam tried to leave New York. He took a bus to Philadelphia. But within a week, people were pointing at him, whispering, "That's Big Sam, the man who betrayed Bumpy Johnson." He moved to Baltimore. Same thing. The story had spread through every black community on the East Coast. He tried Chicago. Lasted 2 months. Sam realized there was nowhere to hide. The story was bigger than him now. It was a legend. He returned to New York in March 1959. Eventually, Sam ended up on the streets. Blind. Scarred. Begging for change. And here's the twisted part that shows exactly who Bumpy Johnson was. Bumpy sent people to give Sam money every week. $20. Enough to survive. Not thrive. Just survive. Because Bumpy wanted Sam alive. Wanted everyone to see him. Wanted every would-be traitor to walk past Sam and remember what betrayal cost. The Red Rooster incident changed everything in New York. Before that night, the Italian families thought they could take over Harlem any time they wanted. After that night, they knew better. Bumpy Johnson had proven something that terrified them. He didn't just control the streets. He controlled hearts and minds. 340 people witnessed a brutal attack, and every single one of them chose silence over cooperation with police. Share this video so people understand what real power looks like. That's true power. Not violence. Not money. Loyalty. The kind of loyalty where 340 people would rather risk prison than betray you. The kind of loyalty where your enemies ask for peace instead of revenge. The kind of loyalty that makes you untouchable. Vincent Gigante told his captains after Sam's incident, "We're not fighting Bumpy anymore. You can't win against a man his people love more than they fear us." That was the beginning of a 20-year peace between Bumpy Johnson and the Italian mob. They divided territories. They respected boundaries. And they never tried to buy off Bumpy's people again. But the story doesn't end there. Because what Bumpy did that night created a legend that lasted decades. Young men in Harlem grew up hearing about September 12, 1958. The night Big Sam pulled a trigger and lost everything. The night Bumpy Johnson showed the whole criminal underworld that loyalty mattered more than money. The FBI investigated the Red Rooster incident for years. They knew Bumpy was behind it. They knew Sam was the target. They knew 340 people saw everything. But they couldn't prove anything. Not one witness would testify. Not one person would break. The FBI agent in charge, Michael Romano, eventually wrote in his report, "Johnson commands loyalty we cannot understand or penetrate. Standard investigation methods are ineffective." If this shocked you, comment untouchable below. Today, the Red Rooster is gone. replaced by a coffee shop that sells $15 lattes to people who have no idea what happened on that exact spot. But old-timers in Harlem remember. They tell the story to their grandchildren. They point at the building and say, "That's where Bumpy Johnson became immortal." Sam died in 1974. Blind. Alone. Still carrying those 36 scars. In his final days, he told a reporter something chilling. "I see Bumpy every night in my dreams. He's sitting at that corner table. Smiling. Waiting. I pulled a trigger and lost my soul." The reporter asked if Sam regretted taking the $50,000. Sam laughed. A bitter, broken laugh. "I never got the money. The Italians refused to pay after I failed. So I traded my eyes, my body, and my life for nothing. Absolutely nothing." That's the final lesson of September 12, 1958. Betrayal costs everything. But loyalty makes you legendary. Bumpy Johnson understood that better than anyone. He could have just killed Sam quietly, made him disappear like so many others. But instead, he created a living monument to loyalty. A blind, scarred man walking the streets as a permanent reminder. The 5 families never tried to touch Bumpy again. They couldn't. Because Bumpy had proven something terrifying. He didn't need to threaten people. He didn't need to offer more money. His people chose him freely. Chose him over cash. Chose him over safety. Chose him over everything. That's not power you can buy or steal. That's power you earn. Years later, a young gangster asked Bumpy how he built such loyalty. Bumpy's answer became famous in Harlem. "I never asked anyone to die for me. But I made sure they knew I'd die for them first." That's the difference between a boss and a king. 340 witnesses. 8 seconds of darkness. 1 blind traitor. 0 convictions. That's the legacy of September 12, 1958. The night Bumpy Johnson turned betrayal into legend. The night the Italian mob learned you can't defeat loyalty with money. The night Harlem proved it would always protect its king. If you found this story incredible, smash that like button right now. Comment below with the name of another legendary gangster you want me to cover next. And subscribe because I'm bringing you the most shocking untold stories from history that nobody else will tell you. Stories about loyalty, betrayal, and the thin line between legend and myth. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss these hidden chapters of history. Because you can't kill one man when 40,000 would die for him. Remember that. Remember Bumpy Johnson. And remember that true power isn't about fear. It's about loyalty that runs deeper than blood.